everyone, welcome to my channel, HFY Beyond Terra. This channel is all about HFY and sci-fi stories. Now, let's start the story.
The council chamber was designed to make truth unavoidable. Its ceiling arched like an upturned blade, plated in pale crystal that caught every voice and carried it in perfect, merciless clarity. Even a whisper could climb the air and return. As judgment, at the center dais stood High Counselor Morovin, draped in ceremonial layers so elaborate they resembled a moving monument. He lifted one hand, and a halo of holographic diagnostics spiraled above his palm blood-red arcs of data. Neural lattice scans, and projected decay charts that rotated like a sentence being sharpened. Cumulative psionic degeneration, Morovin announced. His voice carried the calm authority of a man who had never once been wrong, at least. Never publicly, the medical council confirms the pattern beyond dispute. Her Majesty's cognitive field is failing. Atrophy is progressing. And the cause, he paused just long enough for the room to lean in, is the human. A murmur swept across the assembled nobles and officers, a soft wave of thought noise that pressed against the Queen's mind. Like wet cloth, the human stood near the eastern wall, still, upright, hands behind his back. His uniform was dull beige and worn at the seams, stretched across shoulders shaped by years of combat and long days standing between danger and royalty. 12 years of service had polished his presence into something unremarkable, which was exactly what you wanted in a protector. But he wasn't unremarkable in the way the court meant. To the Verolius species whose minds leaped like lanterns, he was an absence, a pocket of nothing, a dead spot in the psychic atmosphere, a void that swallowed the incessant hum of surface thought. And on the throne, Queen Isara sat carved from emerald light and rage. Her red hair was braided in the old royal style, pinned with gold. Her gown was the color of fresh spilled wine. Her hands rested on the armrests like a ruler's hands should, steady, except they weren't. The human saw the tremor in her fingers, the microscopic tension in her jaw, the way her breathing had become shallow over the past week, as though the air itself was too loud. Morovin swiped the hologram. More scans bloomed. Necrosis in the receptive cortex, he continued. A degradation that correlates precisely with the human's presence in proximity to Her Majesty. The noble's thoughts rippled louder. It's unnatural. He's poison. She's been weakened for years. The Queen's eyes remained locked forward, but the human could see it, her focus wavering at the edges. The court's mind noise was thick today, layered and sharp, full of ambition and fear, and underneath all of it pulsed something worse, pain. Morovin's gaze shifted and landed on the human with the practiced pity of a man, placing a dying animal down. I do not suggest malice, Morovin said smoothly. Humans are simply incompatible. Your Majesty, the board recommends immediate termination of Guard Rook's contract. A silence stretched, so taut it seemed the chamber itself might crack. Every eye turned to the Queen. Every mind pressed toward her, and the human Rook waited. He did not protest. He did not deny. He had watched soldiers die to save rulers far less deserving than Isara. If his presence was truly killing her, then there was no defense worth making. Isara finally moved. Her voice cut through the chamber like polished steel. "Do you have anything to say?" Rook met her gaze. Her eyes were luminous, impossible like a storm trapped in glass. There was something in them that wasn't royal command. It was desperation, a silent plea that he fight, that he expose the lie, that he refused to leave. But Rook had learned long ago that love sometimes meant surrendering the thing you wanted most. "No, Your Majesty," he said quietly. The room inhaled. "If my presence harms you." Then the decision is simple. Isra's expression did not change. Queen's did not break in public. But something fractured behind her eyes, just slightly, like ice beginning to split. She lowered her gaze to the termination slate. The stylus hovered above it. Her hand shook once. Then she forced it steady and signed. The slate flashed blue official, irreversible. Rook walked forward with measured steps and placed his badge on the table. A small rectangle of metal worn smooth by a decade of handling. No ceremony, no farewell speeches, no gratitude. Morovin's smile was subtle, but it was there. Rook turned toward the massive sealed doors that guarded the chamber. Behind him, he heard Isra's breath hitch, the soft rustle of her gown as she leaned forward, as if to speak. He did not look back. The doors opened with a hydraulic sigh. Rook stepped through, and the void broke. The scream that followed wasn't acoustic. It was psychic. 1,000 minds crashed into Isra's consciousness at once, the full court. Unfiltered, every ambition, every fear, every secret desire, and petty grievance slammed into her skull like a storm. She pitched forward off her throne, hands clumped to her head. Green blood spilled from her nose and dripped onto the marble. And through the agony, a realization sharpened into truth. The silence hadn't been the disease. The silence had been the cure. And her cure was already gone. 72 hours later, Queen Isara lay in her private chamber, wrapped in soundproof walls that accomplished nothing. The architects of the palace had designed defenses against spies and assassins, not against the relentless reality of being. Volley of hearing everyone. The sedatives dulled her limbs. They did not dull the noise. The new guards were worse. Commander Yelen had replaced the human with an elite psionic security unit, and their thoughts were louder parade of ego and self-congratulation. Chosen by the commander, finally, we will be seen. She will thank us. Isara stared at the ceiling and wanted to claw her own mind open. When the pain became unbearable, she reached for the intercom. "Send Commander Yelen," she rasped. "Now." Minutes later, he arrived in ceremonial armor polished to perfection. His mind screamed confidence. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing deeply. "How may I serve?" Isara's gaze flicked past him to the empty space near her door. The place where Rook had stood for 12 years. Where the quiet had existed. "Where is he?" she asked. Yelen blinked. "Who?" "The human." A pause. Then dismissal hardened his expression. "He was processed out," Yelen said, "escorted to transport. He's likely back in whatever gutter humans infest, or off-world. He is irrelevant." The word hit like a knife. Irrelevant. Isara stood slowly, gripping the bedpost. Her balance wavered. her nerves still shredded from 3 days of psychic assault. "You will leave," she said. Yelen hesitated, pride warring with obedience. Then he bowed stiffly and left. When the door shut, Isara moved to the private cabinet hidden behind decorative paneling. A compartment only Rook had known how to open. Inside lay an emergency kit, stimulant injectors, a compact plasma cutter, a small circular device, an old tracker Rook had once called insurance. She remembered him saying, "If something happens, and you can't trust the palace, look for the voids, the places the system can't see." At the time she had laughed. Now she wept, silently, because she finally understood. She loaded a stimulant injector into her hand and pressed it to her neck. The chemical burn snapped her mind into painful focus. She waited until the guard rotation shifted, until the elite guard's thoughts drifted from discipline into casual chatter. Then she triggered the chamber's environmental override. The vents hissed. The guard's minds stuttered, then disappeared. Knockout gas, colorless, odorless. A last resort feature Rook had once shown her, quietly, as if explaining how to survive her own palace. Isara pulled a hooded cloak over her shoulders, activated the tracker, and slipped into the corridor. The screen lit the palace as a constellation of minds, bright points everywhere. She flipped the filter to negative space. One black dot appeared in the lower districts, a void, an absence in the roar. She ran. The lower city did not whisper, it screamed. Neon signs bled light through smog. Vendors shouted in harsh dialects. Minds spilled rage and hunger and desperate want into the psychic air like leaking fuel. Isara's cloak flickered under the strain of her royal-grade psionic signature. She wasn't invisible, she was wrong. A glitch in reality. Someone noticed. 3 figures stepped from an alley, their thoughts simple and predatory. Rich, alone, easy, lost, sweetheart. The lead thug purred. Isara lifted her chin, trying to summon the voice, the psychic authority that could freeze minds and rewrite intention. "Stop," she commanded. The lead thug flinched. His companions hesitated, but they didn't obey. Her voice was weak, a whisper when she needed a blade. The thug smiled wider. Cute. Then glass shattered against his skull. A 4th figure stepped out of a dive bar doorway, moving like violence given a body. Broad, solid, controlled. Not in beige uniform, now civilian clothes. Dark jacket, sleeves rolled back. But the posture hadn't changed. The calm hadn't changed. The void returned, and with it, the world quieted. The figure didn't speak. He simply moved. A baton flashed. A knee collapsed. An elbow drove into ribs. Another baton strike ended. The third attacker's jaw with a sickening crack. For seconds, 3 bodies on the ground. The man turned. His expression shifted through recognition, shock, and something sharp, anger or fear before snapping back into disciplined neutrality. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice was calm, professional, but his eyes were not. Isara stumbled forward. The silence around him felt like water after fire. "Take me somewhere quiet," she whispered. Then she collapsed into his arms. He caught her without struggle, as if his body had been waiting for her weight all these days. His voice dropped to something softer. "I've got you," he murmured. He lifted her fully, ignoring stares, ignoring the chaos of the street, and carried her into the dark. His apartment was exactly what she expected. Small, sparse, clean, a fold-down bed, one chair, a compact kitchen, a locked case that probably contained weapons. And inside it, the silence was absolute, not acoustic. She still heard distant traffic and the buildings groan. But psychically, nothing. No screaming minds. No crushing noise. Just quiet. Isara sat on the bed's edge, breathing properly for the first time in days. The man crouched before her with a first aid kit. Methodical. Precise. Like he was repairing something that mattered. "How bad?" he asked. She swallowed. "Unbearable." His jaw tightened. "The diagnosis," he said, low. "They said I was killing you. It was a lie." Her voice shook. "Morovin needed you gone." The man's eyes sharpened. "Because I'm a blank spot," he realized. "A hole in their network." "Yes." Isara leaned forward. The noise got worse because something was turned on. An amplifier. "They're using it." The man didn't look surprised, only grim. "An amplifier lets them override will, puppet the court." He exhaled. "Morovin's making a power play." Isara stared at him. "You figured that out instantly." "I spent my life reading threat patterns," he said. "This one's obvious." She reached for his hand. His fingers paused, then allowed the contact. "I thought I was harming you," he said quietly. "I left because I thought if my existence was hurting you, staying would be selfish." Isara's eyes burned. "You were saving me every day." She forced the words out. "You were my only relief, my only shelter." A long moment passed. Then his voice dropped, raw. "What do you need?" "Your silence," she whispered, "and your strength." His gaze met hers. A decision moved through his expression like a door unlocking. "Then we finish this," he said, properly. The window flashed white. Pain exploded in Isara's skull. A psionic screamer, an ultrasonic weapon tuned to liquefy telepathic neural structures. Isara screamed and dropped, clutching her head, blood already spilling. The Manrook's replacement, name now gone in this rewrite, did not fall. He tilted his head, listening. "Annoying," he muttered. Then he walked to his weapons case, entered a code, and withdrew an old service pistol. "Get down," he said. Isara crawled into the bathtub, shaking. Helpless. The door slammed. For armored figures burst in Morovin's cleaners. They expected a corpse. Instead, they found a human with a gun. The lead cleaner's eyes widened. Impossible. Nothing survives a screamer. The human shot him through the visor. The cleaner dropped instantly. The others hesitated one fatal half-second. The human did not. 3 shots. 3 down. The last cleaner triggered a fear spike. A psychic assault meant to reduce targets to catatonia. The human only blinked, then shot the attacker in the knee. The cleaner screamed audibly this time, and crumpled. Silence remained except for Isara's ragged breathing. The screamer cut off. She gasped as the pressure lifted. The human looked down at her, calm as a storm contained. "They're coming with heavier weapons," he said. "Can you?" Move Gesara forced herself upright. Yes, good. He handed her a plasma rifle ripped from one of the fallen. We're going to the palace. That's insane. He met her eyes. I know. Then he lifted her into his arms again, like she weighed nothing at all. But you're the only one who can undo what they've done. He kicked open the fire escape door. And I'm the only one who can get you close enough outside. The city burned. Ahead, a psychic haze rose over the palace spires like purple fog. The amplifier was awake. And the void was coming home.